Is the mainstream media biased in their reporting? And what is the difference between a reporter and a journalist? Next on Full Disclosure. Hello, I'm Leslie Dutton. Today on Full Disclosure, we're going to bring you the news behind the news on our interview with media critic Brent Bozell, who founded the Media Research Center specifically to document the perceived bias of the major media.
I think the public is on to the press. All the surveys show overwhelmingly the public, A, believes that the media are biased, B, believes it's a liberal bias, and C, the public doesn't trust reporters to give the news. Instead, they believe overwhelmingly reporters are giving their personal opinions. So long as the public thinks that way, the left really is not going to be very successful using the news media.
We ask him about Rathergate. That's the CBS 60 Minutes segment anchored by Dan Rather that was accused of using false military records purportedly belonging to President George W. Bush in an attempt to influence the outcome of the 2004 presidential campaign.
It took 10 days for CBS to apologize and to admit that they made a mistake. But Dan Rather has now given about 5 different versions. First, he read the story. Then he stood by the story. Then 10 days later, he apologized. Then he told a Chicago paper a week later that he stood by it. Now he's saying the story is true. He's telling everybody that the story is true. If the story is true, why did he apologize? If he apologized if it was wrong, why wasn't there corrective action taken against Andy Hayward, the president of the network? Why was he allowed to skate free? Why did they fire 2 underling producers, but let Dan Rather stay on the job? They didn't handle this one very well. Unfortunately, Dan Rather's reputation is tarnished forever as a result. And if Dan Rather had come publicly the next night and said, ladies and gentlemen, last night we reported this, today it's been revealed this memo was a hoax, we apologize. You know what? The American people would have forgiven him instantaneously, because we always do. And the story would have been over. And actually, he would have scored some great points. Instead, he behaved so poorly, and what do the media do? They give him a Peabody for it. And then they wonder why people don't trust them.
We'll ask Mr. Bozell about the Valerie Plame CIA controversy that has implicated the big media and the White House.
The Valerie Plame case is one of those cases that the American people are yawning about, could care less about. This is the quintessential inside baseball Washington, D.C. media story that has no traction out there. The very first entity to report that Valerie Plame was a CIA operative was not Bob Novak, was not Time magazine. It was The Nation magazine, a liberal organization. The very first person or entity to report her as a CIA operative. But you haven't seen that in the news, have you? You wonder about so much that is never investigated. Why is it that John Kerry, remember 1971, George Bush, 2 weeks gone from Alabama allegedly, and that's all the media could care about. At the very same time, the very same year, John Kerry was testifying before the Senate, saying that he participated in the burning of villages, the raping of women, and the killing of children. And you'd think that some reporter somewhere on the campaign trail in 2004 would have said to the man who would be president of the United States, did you participate in that? Would you like to expand on that a little bit, Mr. Would-be President of the American people? Did you rape women? Did you burn villages? Did you kill children? I think the American people would like to know. I think an investigative journalist would have investigated that story as a little bit more important than where George W. Bush was for 2 weeks on vacation in 1971. And yet, I challenge you, go into the record books, go into the campaign, and you tell me who investigated that story. Nobody.
We want to know what you, the viewers, think about this issue of media bias. Why do you think the news media did not investigate John Kerry's own testimony before the U.S. Senate, where he said he witnessed the raping of women, burning of villages, and killing of children? Instead, they investigated President Bush's National Guard record, where no such activity was witnessed. Please let us know what you think.